Ray classed as a cursed land. You'd have to be mad to settle here.
Hi, Zizaran here with another video, and today we are going to do a TLDR of the patch notes. So this is going to be a 3-hour video. We do have a full video going over the patch notes, and I have a TLDR going over the announcement video as well. So a lot of different videos you can look at. But yeah, we'll separate each section into a winners and losers section to make it simple. So yeah, I'm probably also not going to mention specific numbers on things. So feel free to have the patch notes open while watching the video. First, we're going to talk about skills. It is the first real meta shakeup in ages for league starters. Now, the builds, when we're a little bit further into the league, like day 2 to 6, etc., have been quite different in the last few leagues, but league starters have been incredibly stale. We are also getting new power in the game via crafting enchants, recombinators being met, Calandra. So, like, we have no idea how all of that is going to affect it. It's honestly going to be a really different league. Like, don't despair too much if your main builds were nerfed. There's going to be so much interesting and potent stuff here. So, let's focus on the good first. Slams, massive buff. Every melee skill, and there's like a big sheet showing like what got nerfed relatively and stuff. It was really cool. Glacial Hammer looks really good. Almost all melee skills get a huge damage effectiveness buff. They do lose base damage, so weapons are a lot better before, and they have higher scaling, so that is pretty huge. We do lose a lot of attack speed too, so it might end up feeling a little weird. We'll see. We'll have to learn and play. But yeah, Lacerate, Rave looks juicy. Cyclone looks great. All bleed builds are buffed because of higher melee damage, like base damage. So bleed should be really spicy. I'm personally looking at Spectral Shield Throw as a starter. I do think that'll fall off on single target, but I just looks like such a good like rush to tier 16s and start grinding build, and then figure out maybe go Earthquake or something else later. Chaos dot skills were buffed, but they're basically losing Malevolence because of the aura changes, and I always forget the name of like the Divine. Is it Divine Blessing that we lost basically? But Chaos dot skills, definitely not something I'm going to be making a video of this league. One skills are mega buffed. There does look to be a lot of cool stuff with ones. Not only were like one skills have been buffed with like Kinetic Blast and Power Siphon getting basically a Crown of Ice built in, but wand bases have more attack speed and crit. So one's so crazy, and Sandstorm Massage is not nerfed, just up in rarity. So very chase item this league. Double Strike, Dual Strike looks spicy as well. Frostbite looks okay. Elliot of the Spectrum got buffed, although it was a very strong bow skill already. Shield Throw, just like I said, looks really cool. Still, Shield Crush looks really good damage-wise. I don't like Shield Crush. If you like Shield Crush, you'll love it this league. But I hate it. Like, it's like, it looks amazing, and then you play it and you're like, ah, it's shit. But like, if you like it already, you're gonna love it. Flesh and Stone is go, 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 go. And all Vol skills are massively buffed. And I can't remember if Neon said it was a 40% Vol time reduction or 100%, but it sounds like we can do Vol Spark. So yeah, Vol skills could be insane this thing. Bad, my editor in the notes he wrote EA Del LMAO 2 Armor. So we actually can still get 6 totems, and it does lose a lot of things through champion and stuff, but it does gain some aura effect and a few other things. So EA doesn't look dead. It's definitely not an S tier starter anymore. Elementalist, by the way, completely fine. Champion does look nerfed, so it's not something I'm going to recommend as an S tier starter. That being said, I will probably make a video on it so that the people that are really comfortable with it and want something they're familiar with will know, like, well, what changed? What do I have to do to compensate? Detonate dead. Most forms of DD is dead. Rue was already looking at a Archmage DD and said that's better than ever. But the normal forms of doing DD looks dead. And from what I can understand, at least like racing DD should be dead. Divine Blessing is gone. This was an auto include in most builds. However, we do have like the minion aura thing. We are most likely getting the marionettes back. So you can have an aura on your minions, and that's permanently up. It's a little annoying to run, but this can replace it for a lot of builds. War Cries look kinda shit in my opinion, except for Seismic. I don't know how actual melee players feel about this, but that was my like initial impression. Berserk is nerfed into the ground, and the new Warden thing gets like basically Spell Berserk. Bone Shatter is sort of nerfed, surprisingly. It's not that surprising because it has been king of the hill for so long, but compared to everything else, Bone Shatter no longer looks like it is the king and savior of melee. Call to Arms is now removed and reserves a mana. It is called Auto Exertion. It does look kinda mediocre, but you can have multiple now. but it does use mana. Banners. They're really bad. A lot of people are saying like, oh, these are just totems, and that is not the problem I have with them, because they do fix a lot of the problems with totems. They're supposed to be slightly more powerful, temporary buffs that are immortal. They're also instant casts if they don't have a cast time. So those things are good, right? And they can't die. Very important. However, the buffs on them are awful. They have conditional buffs. And this is really bad. You're never, even on softcore, going to be sitting at 50% spell suppression and like, oh, once I place my banner at full strength, I'll go to 100 for 6 seconds. This is not going to happen. Or like, oh, I'm sitting at 50% block, but when I put down my banner for 6, 7 seconds or 10 seconds, I'll have full block. The only one, it's the war banner one. That one looks fine because it's like, okay, I want a damage boost now. I'll put down my banner. And that one makes sense. The others don't. So conditional defense is not something you're ever going to want, regardless of if you're softcore or hardcore. Like Molten Shell is different because that's something you use more for slams, right? You just get more effective HP, which is different than the other ones. Determination was nerfed, but we do get more flat armor from gear. So, you know, bit of a nerf early. It'll be harder to get defense early for sure, but it should be fine with all the new bases and stuff and the additional changes from quality. Rage support gem is reworked, easier to get going, but no flat damage anymore. So those are the main good and bad for skills. We're going to move on to ascendancies. The good. Warden, new ascendancy by Raider. There can be only one. Lots of alt elemental ailment synergy, and the shock stuff looks insane. Obviously, a lot of people are expecting taming to be nerfed before launch. Bark skin is back, and it invests in tinctures. Tinctures do look a bit bad, but just because something looks bad on paper doesn't mean it'll actually be bad, because a lot of the time we just need to figure something out. A thing that traditionally happens in ARPGs is that people don't see the potential for things and just say like, oh, this is shit, because they can't initially figure it out. So give it some time and a lot of stuff will probably look better. Gladiator gets a full rework. Fun charges are gone. It's the challenger charges are what they're called. Lots of block. You can get like insanely high block super early. It looks a lot stronger for bleed, and we now have the ability to automatically force targets to move, taking more damage from bleed, making it really, really strong. Obviously, that doesn't have much synergy or any at all with Crimson Dance, but there will still be a lot of interesting stuff you can do here. I am considering league starting Gladiator. Jug is now tankier against chaos damage, and we were looking a little bit at the mitigation here. So you do get a pseudo fourth vow built into Jug, and endurance charges are so much tankier now. And if you're using Eternal Damnation, which a lot of people are panicking over because they're like, well, then we lose our endurance charges. Well, you don't, because Ralakesh, you are never gaining endurance charges. Same with the minimum endurance charges. You just have them. And that's a really, really cool thing that they let us do. And that is why we want Ralakesh, right? It's why the Maven belt works with Ralakesh, etc. So there are a lot of cool combos there. That will unfortunately make Ralakesh skyrocket in price, however, even though I don't think it's tier 1, sorry, tier 0, I think it's a tier 1 unique. But it could be sitting anywhere between 5 and 30 divines. I don't think it'll go much over 30, depending on what league you play. Very, very interesting, because you can basically get like 90% damage reduction defended with 40% LE damage reduction from endurance charges, or even like 32, and then Eternal Damnation on top of that. It's pretty spicy, right? You get like the triple layer, and then you finally have Zibakwa, Divine Flesh from Doriani, Glorious Vanity, with the armor there. If you have 100 or 200k armor, it's pretty nutty. So honestly, very, very strong defensively. Next up, Chieftain removes some filler nodes. It has the infinite power Warcry node, but like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Warcries at the moment. It just maxes it out no matter what. Really good league starter. You get free melding. You can instantly get to like tier 16 and farm the bosses there without dying, but very little damage for most builds. So Ascendant, the Ascendant Berserker node is kind of whatever, but the Gladiator Ascendant node is insane. Very strong. It does gain the damage a lot slower than Gladiator does. Both of them have like a every 1 second or every 2 seconds you gain 1% more damage, and this is to promote especially hardcore builds that are really focused on tanking. So for example, on Gladiator, after 100 seconds you have 100% more damage, right? So you don't necessarily need to build a lot of damage. You can just build tank, and then the damage will come eventually if you're okay with waiting a little bit. That can be really, really good. And Ascendant has the same thing, but every 2 seconds, and a cap of 50 instead of 100. Now we'll cover some of the bad stuff. Berserker seems Probably the worst ascendancy I've ever seen. I don't understand why you'd ever do this on hardcore. Maybe some software players will be playing it, but yeah. Champion does get nerfed, loses Fortify. A little bit of a more boring ascendancy now, but because they move the Fortify around, that is a bit of a buff. You get the Fortify for 2 points instead of having to take the 4 points. That means you can get the Adrenaline, Intimidate, whatever node a lot easier. So that is interesting. So it'll still be used. I think it's stronger than people give it credit for. Deadeye gets a Frenzy node. Now the Raider is gone. It doesn't seem amazing, especially since Tailwind gets nerfed. But it does get more tank for Gale Force node. But I have heard some Wanderers talking about using it, so we'll see. A lot of these things are kind of really hard to really place into a booth of good or bad until we see people using them. There's also just so many things being added to the game. It really is hard to keep track of everything, but that is a nice TLDR. Next on, we are going to cover items. The good. Fist taken as Ellie in general is getting removed. This is probably good for the game, but it is really bad for our defense at the moment. It makes it harder to run things like Transcendence. Taste of Hate is effectively gone. The Watcher's Eyes purity mods are gone. So the things we still have for conversion is, I believe we have the helmet. We definitely have the chest one. Really, if you were doing any form of conversion, you're almost forced into a lightning coil anyway, or Cloak of Flames. And we do have Dawnbreaker, but we did lose corruptions on Dawnbreaker. So yeah, interesting. We'll see how that ends up working. But yeah, with 70%, that is quite good, but you would need to invest a little bit into armor. Now, at even 50%, like wearing a coil, then obviously 1,000 armor is basically 2,000 armor. So, not the end of the world. Adorned is nerfed. This is listed under good things. It is now 0 to 100% range. I did think it was going to be 0 to 120. But 100% is obviously very good. It would make +1 max fire rest on a jewel, be 2 max fire rest, etc. But it is very game warping. Now, I didn't think it was a huge issue. It is more of a softcore issue than hardcore anyway. But also, like, it is such an investment thing. And I do like having cool things to invest into. I'm a big opponent of huge power when it is easily accessible, right? Like, for example, the suicide totems, when they were basically 1C to kill Ubers. I don't think that's fun. And you feel stupid for not playing it for a lot of people, but I do like it when we have things to invest into. So, you know, a little bit good, a little bit bad. It does homogenize builds a lot. Defiance of Destiny is nerfed, still going to be very strong. I do wonder if they're going to do anything about the rarity of it, because it is not Mage Blood power, but it is Mage Blood rarity. So we'll see. It will still make you immortal for mapping and probably tier 17s, but yeah, really, really juicy stuff. You'll die. Item qualities rework. This is really cool. Like, for example, chisels on white maps is 20 quality, yellows is 10, and red maps is 5. And depending on item level on armor scraps and whetstones, it'll be more or less than 1. So, well, not less than, but you get the idea. Like, on a low level item, you'll get 20 quality from 1 whetstone. I do hope that it shows how much it's going to give before clicking it. Life rolls on armor has a higher value now, so we will have more life than before. This is cool for life stackers, like the burning arrow thing, I believe is still a thing. Loads of influence mods to rebalance, etc. Now, a little bit of a problem that I don't think they've talked about is life rolls on armors and belts and everything being higher now makes gear, like unique items without any life, even more punishing. So I don't think that's a good thing. I think they're a little bit too stingy with life on uniques. And I know they have said their philosophy there is if a unique needs life to be usable, then it is not special enough. But life is so important in the game, so it's hard. Base crit and attack speed on like claws, wands, daggers, and a lot of things have been buffed. So it's very cool. For items and bad things, couldn't really think of any that were like just directly bad. I think a lot of them are really interesting. Monster balance wise, Stygian Revenants are more telegraphed, and I believe they are nerfed now. Obviously, all tier 17s have 30% less damage, so that'll affect them. Pinnacle bosses can be slowed up to 50% speed, so very huge buff for chill skills like Glacial Hammer and stuff should really take advantage of this. Essence mobs have different type of scaling, so they should no longer be raid bosses. Hopefully. Surely. Yeah, that is the main things. That I tried to make this as short and condensed as possible while covering the most important thing. And actually a really small thing I want to mention, you can control shift click currency into your stash tab now, not just trade windows. So really, really big one. But either way, they really cooked with this. This is the most I've ever been excited for an announcement. And I feel like I'm almost 50-50, like despair, 50-50 hype for these. But yeah, this is the coolest thing ever. And I hated last league. I gave it a 5 out of 10. So I'm very excited for a banger league and for me to stop playing Dota 2. I did manage to get from Crusader to Divine very quickly. 3 weeks, very proud of that. It's time to set down the Dota and get high into some PoE. So hope you've all been enjoying a break from ARPGs and ready to come back, all refreshed and bushy-tailed and bright-eyed, I believe is the expression. But either way, thank you guys so much for watching all the videos. Sub if you like it, but more importantly, try to die less than I do.